Today's guest on Finally Seen is Lynn Abaté-Johnson, a global business consultant, community builder, and two-time international best-selling author who embodies what it means to show up fully both in business and in life. And boy, do I know that about her. Lynn helps brands, entrepreneurs, and organizations bring their whole selves to work so they can cultivate communities that don't just buy, but advocate, whether she's empowering corporate teams or guiding caregivers through the chaos of personal loss. Lynn speaks human in a world that often forgets to. Her work is bold, heart-centered, and rooted in real transformation, and y'all are in for a treat. Lynn, I'm so happy you are here. You and I have been in each other's worlds for 10 or so years, and it's been such a joy to have you in my world. And I just want to welcome you to the podcast to Finally Seen. As you know, Finally Seen is about helping everyone, every woman specifically, feel seen in all the areas of her life. Because as you know, we're not all just one thing. We're not just moms, just women, just sisters. We're so many things. And I know that about you. One of the things I've always thought was amazing is your sense of, or your ability to build community, really. So let me let you take it off a little bit here, or take us off, and tell us about community and what that means to you, and scene and all that.
Okay, well, thank you for having me, Chrissy. This is so great that we get to have this conversation in public.
Yeah, I know, right?
Congratulations on this podcast, Finally Seen. I think it's so important. And I have a little bit of a different take on building community, and I've kind of branded it myself where I call it true community. And what true community is, it transcends, it's also, for many years, first I was in sales, and then I got into marketing, and now it's really a lot less jargony, buzzwordy marketing. Like, I consider it to be unmarketing. Like, this is different than that. And not just plain old everyday community building, which is it's such a ambiguous term and confusing for people.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about mainly is building relationships over time that, to use a little bit of a buzzword, that scale. So for any business owner out there in your audience, or for anyone who's really interested in being seen, both personally and professionally, you know that it takes relationship building to build a business, and that relationships don't happen by accident, and they don't happen by just kind of putting one message out there and waiting for people to come knocking at the door. That's never going to happen unless maybe you're a celebrity. And, I know that you're a PR expert. So in that world, you can help get people seen from whatever projects they're doing or whatever new thing they're creating. And then there's also, you could serve that up. And then on the other side of that, what happens? Do those people keep coming back? Do those people keep returning to you to be repeat customers? And do they shout you from the rooftops? Like, that kind of advocacy you cannot buy. That is free advertising when you are creating a force of people, a community of people that's going to shout you out. So that's one thing. And the thing that most business owners forget today is to ask for referrals and to welcome referrals. So we want people flocking to our doors. We want them to come back often, kind of like a party, right? We threw a party, you came, you liked what you saw, you had a great time, you're going to come back for more. But next time you're going to bring a bunch of friends with you. And so those are the distinctions that, for me, make all of the difference in terms of building community. And there are so many ways to do that, so many different avenues to do that, as you and I both know.
I love that. And it does, you're exactly right, because I see it all the time. And I actually have a post about this not long ago, where you go viral or somebody gets on TV or some sort of big moment, but there was no community behind it or no plan to sustain that. And so you're very right. Like, once you build that true community, then when you've got that 15 minutes of fame, something can happen with it. Or like you said, if they buy something, then they'll buy again and invite their friends to buy. So that is amazing. Yeah. That's a good distinction between just building community. Because sure, I mean, yeah, you can build community, but are they engaged? Do they care?
Yeah, and the responsibility for keeping those customers is on the business owner, right? So I'll give you a really good example, actually, because I'm referred to people all of the time, local businesses, and
Oh, you're
you know,
great at that.
my friends always know, like, if you want to show up in a real authentic way and amplify your message, then Lynn is your gal. And so people would come to me. This one restaurant owner came to me and actually admitted that there was an issue and a challenge with the front of the house. So for those of you in the hospitality business, the front of the house is where the customers walk in the door, and the front of the house staff meets them and greets them and seats them, meets, greets, seats, and then gets them excited about what's on the menu. Well, this restaurant owner admitted to me freely that the front of the house needed work, that the employees would come in and they didn't have the time to sit down and even do a 15-minute debrief about what was great on the menu, what was fresh. And this was a sushi restaurant that was amazing and had so much to offer, and the chef knew what they were doing, right? So I said, I can drive traffic through your doors. I know I can do that. However, if you have an issue with the front of the house, you better fix that before you even engage me at all. So you're not ready for me. And it's also, the old Groupon craze many, many, many years ago. So many businesses were offering, BOGOs, buy one, get one
Yeah.
free, and all these amazing deals. And what ended up happening, because they weren't prepared on the back end
Yeah.
to serve the hundreds of new customers that came in with that coupon, their business sunk. It did even worse after the fact because the reputation didn't hold up to what that coupon was even offering. And so, yeah, you can get people to the door, you can invite people to your party, and then what you do from there is true community. It's relationship building. And many business owners they either don't know or they don't want to accept that it takes time. And so a lot of us, we don't have the patience to invest in the business time and money, so all of the resources, and then stick with it long enough to see some results and build a team around you that can help you deliver those results. So it's a very holistic approach to being seen and being heard, and then also being lifted up by that unpaid uh, evangelist group or advocacy group that you're creating.
Yeah. I love that example that you show because you're right. You can bring 1,000 people to it, but if their first experience isn't good, well, then they don't get to experience really the chef's genius. And then they're definitely not going to come back. And I have experienced that very thing myself when I've gone places and it's just kind of meh. And, I actually, it happened even at the doctor's office recently. So, you might not necessarily think that that would make a make or break moment. But I went there and it was just such a weird vibe from everybody on the front end that I was like, ugh, I'm definitely not going to go. And they sent me a referral, like, hey, how did you like your thing? Would you refer us to your friends? And I'm thinking to myself, absolutely not. I definitely won't be going back and I won't be referring my friends. And I don't know if the doctor was excellent or not. Doesn't matter.
Right.
I still got
I
that
mean,
weird vibe.
and furthermore, our people, our customers are not going to take a risk or a chance on their reputation being jeopardized if they refer to someone and that someone disappoints them.
Mm, very true. Very true. I
So, and I know, like, this about me because you've known me for so long, that I don't recommend just everybody and anybody. I'm really careful
yeah.
about who I recommend because I consider it to be my own reputation on the line.
100%. And, myself, the same thing. Like, that's why when I do recommend products or something like that, it's something I actually am using, I actually like, and I actually believe in. So, and you said something earlier about showing up fully as yourself. You have a program called Show Up You. I guess expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I created Show Up You. It is a curriculum. I originally created it as a 4-week course, and that was really fun and really great, and I got great reviews on that. And then I thought this year, I thought I'm going to morph that into something more bite-sized. So instead of 4 weeks, it's 1 hour. And so I took the curriculum and I dissected it into really critical pieces of the Show Up You philosophy that I have, which is based on that true community building.
Okay.
And so now I'm offering that, and anybody can find it anytime on my website. And if you're in between my dates where I'm offering it, you can always get on my wait list. So, I put together small groups of people for 1 hour at a time, and it's very affordable. And I'm taking into consideration those people who are either working full time and trying to get a side hustle going. So then maybe the weekend, they do a lot of their work on the weekends. And so I'm trying out different time slots for that, just keeping those people in mind. And then it could be for entrepreneurs or brands who are already established, but maybe have gotten stale or stuck, or they're just not sure where to go or how to show up and where to show up. So, for me, I'm known for social media expertise. And yes, I love it. It's a great tool. I highly recommend it. And I don't recommend every channel for every brand or every business. And so sometimes people who are recommended to me come to me and they say, "Oh, I need to be on social media. I need to be on social media." And I stop them and I actually challenge that. Why do you think that? Who told you that? And why do you think? And where do you think you should be? And what would you say if you did show up there on blah, blah, blah social media channels? So I my approach is more common sense and not always chasing after the next
Uh,
shiny object.
yes. Yeah, I
Mhm.
know. Everybody, it's like, oh, this new platform came out. Everybody jumped ship. And it's like, whoa, okay, wait. Is that where the audience is? Is that where I enjoy going? It's like, for me, example, I don't really enjoy TikTok. So I'm not on it that much. And am I losing business by not being on TikTok? Maybe, but I don't enjoy it. So I don't want to be there.
So this is a really great point that you just led us to. If you don't enjoy it, or if you can't show up authentically, then please don't do it. Like when that whole TikTok thing started with people dancing on TikTok, I was just like, please, no. Like, unless you're a dancer, don't show up on TikTok dancing. If you're
Love
not,
it.
right? If you're not a singer, don't show up on TikTok singing silly songs unless you want that effect, unless that's what you're going for. If there's some kind of humorous element around it, right?
Right.
It has to be in the context of who you are, what you stand for, what your identity is. And this is the work that I do with my clients, is to determine right out of the gate before we start doing anything is who you are, what do you stand for, why are you on this planet? Like, what's your purpose?
Mhm.
And then finally, what do you have to offer your potential customers and clients? And so again, there's resistance to doing that work of, figuring out your identity and your purpose and all of that. I mean, I have done that and I have had help doing it
Mhm.
because I hired a coach and I have an amazing coach who helps guide me through those things because on my own, I would not do it.
Yeah. It is
However,
very challenging.
yeah, it's very challenging and it's boring sometimes. It's just like, oh, it's kind of like developing a business plan, right? Like I've had so many people come to me for help or for, yeah, I've even had friends come to me to get into business with them and partner with them and invest in their business. And I'm like, let's see your business plan. And they're like, I don't have one.
Mm.
So then I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
If you don't have a business plan, and it doesn't have to be a super structured business plan, it has to be something, some bullet points, something
Yeah. Some
that
sort of
an-
intention.
right, that answers those questions about who we are, what we stand for, why we exist in the world, and what we can do for you.
Exactly. I see that all the time, even on personal brands, which is why I'm glad to hear you say that those are the things that you determine with people. Because even this week I was somewhere, and I said, "Do you have your mission together, your vision statement, your values established?" And it was a no, no, no. They don't. And especially in 2025 and beyond, all those things matter. People want to actually do business with people now because of the onslaught of AI and automations and all this stuff. We are craving that human side. And so, knowing your vision and your mission and your values and all that is critical in establishing the human side of you so that you can then go reach more humans. And I just think it's so important. And you're right, it's boring to do by yourself. But honestly, as I've gone through it myself over the years, we've shared some of the same coaches. Now that I have those, it makes me feel like, oh my gosh, I have a pretty awesome foundation here. And I've got a really cool purpose and a really cool mission. I'm actually going to make a difference. Holy cow. So, while it might sound boring and hard to do, having someone guide you makes it so much easier. It really doesn't take as long as you think it does, with someone else kind of guiding you through that and kind of pulling it out of you. So, yeah, I'm glad you said that. And I
Yeah,
feel like a lot of women don't feel like they can fully show up in various areas. I know that we've talked about your caregiving journey in the past and how when you were working for someone else at the time, you hid the fact that you were having to care for your sick mother.
I
That's just
did.
insane.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, kind of switching gears a little bit to the caregiving, here I am, a professional in Silicon Valley, and I'm working with an internet startup on their marketing team. And they had no idea when my mom was diagnosed in 2011 that I was basically working from hospital waiting rooms, doctor's office waiting rooms, emergency rooms, and that I had this whole other life going on at home in my private life. And, uh, it was a real shame that I felt that I had to keep it to myself and that I couldn't trust the people, the leadership at my company to know that they could depend on me or I would leave, right? Like they didn't know me well enough to know that if I couldn't measure up, if I couldn't produce, I would say, "Hey guys, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like I got to take care of my mom," because that was a full-time job in itself. And it's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, and I'll show it to you because I'm so proud. I I wrote Out of Love, A Daughter's Journey with Her Mom to the End. And you worked with me on this book. Thank you very much. And
Beautiful book. Yeah.
it's got original artwork by my Pilates coach, Melanie. And I just love it so much because my mom was the Rose Queen and then the hummingbird story I tell in the book. But I knew, and it says across the top, care for the caregiver. And that's really what I wanted to convey. And the reason why that book had to come out of me is because I, in 6 years, I had all of this knowledge and experience that I had accumulated. And I thought, I know I still have way more questions than answers. However, I want to give caregivers a voice and I want to reassure them that they're not alone. And so all of that stuff that comes with a diagnosis or, you know, anything, anyone in your life, you're a mom, you've got kids and you've raised kids and there's always something, right? There's always some role, some caregiving role that we are going to be called upon to step into. And my book was, in honor, it wasn't even really about my mom. It was about me as a caregiver and that whole transformational journey that happened
Hmm.
uh, on the way ushering her out of the world, and then me realizing that I had this leadership journey to embark on even after my mom was gone. And I know, a lot of the things that my mom wanted for me when she was alive, I now have cultivated. And so it is kind of in honor to her because I know she would be so happy and so proud. And, I was able to let some of the literal and figurative weight come off of me.
Yeah,
Because one of my,
you were both literally and physically. I've seen that
yeah,
journey. So yeah, your mom would definitely be proud.
Yeah, I mean, you knew me 50, 60 pounds ago, and I was so unhealthy and not taking care of myself. And so it was very ironic. And I think this is a part of being seen and being heard is that we can only expect that to the extent that we listen to ourselves. And I mean, I don't know how deep you want to go in this conversation because it's a doozy. You know, that's why I'm doing the work that I'm doing now at this stage in my life and getting help, like having my coach and having workshops and courses that I take to help me along my leadership journey, to help me see the places, in like the shadow work, the dark spots that I don't see myself. I probably would be too afraid to allow myself to go there because I wouldn't feel safe enough to go there. And so
Mm.
I really think it's important to cultivate that community, that team that at any age and stage we are in our lives, I'm starting to realize the older I get, the more questions I have and the less answers.
Yeah, as you're saying that too, I mean, just thinking about my own journey and, some of the shadow work and whatnot. And I guess some people may not understand what that means with the shadow work, but to
Yeah.
me, it means, working on that stuff that's kind of hiding behind the scenes. Or one way I found it recently was realizing that one of my values was actually being used against me, and so
Mm.
I was having to kind of find where it was being used against me in the shadows, and really take a look at how my ego was also showing up, and not ego as in like bravo, bravissimo or whatever, but ego as in, what's between your subconscious and conscious. And
Yeah.
I guess, and it's helping me be able to feel more fully seen in a variety of ways and not just for one particular thing. And so I appreciate that you said that too. What does shadow work mean to you?
Well, my sister and I always say, embrace your dark side. So it's kind of like that Darth Vader side, right? And we need all of that. We need the light and we need the dark. We're whole people. We are whole human beings. And so there was a something that really hit home with me that said, only in the darkness can you see the stars. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The stars are so much more brilliant when you're looking at them in the dark. So there is a high value on this, except that it's not popular to do this kind of work because, like I said earlier, it is a little scary, and it is uncertain. And I talk a lot, and I address this kind of generally in the book about generational trauma
Hmm.
and starting to realize through the years and through the counseling and coaching and all of the different tools that we have in front of us is to realize where we came from and how is that informing the choices that we're making today. So yeah, I think it's a very important exercise. And, even if you're a little nervous to start, find somebody that you trust by word of mouth. That's really the only way, the best way to find somebody that does the kind of work that you're looking to do. And I'm very fortunate because, I have such a beautiful community of professionals who I can tap into and compensate them for helping me on this transformational leadership journey. So it's worth it because I have found that over these years, as I've come more and more into my own presence and conscious living, the more I seem to attract people who are my customers, my friends, relationships, again, back to relationships that I can build that are going to be very fruitful and also profitable. I'm going to be compensated for the gifts that I have. I'm going to be
The law of
appreciated.
compensation.
Yeah. So I think that's, human beings crave acknowledgement and we crave appreciation. And so to be finally seen is really the coin of the realm. And that's why I'm so glad you're having these conversations.
Well, I feel like finally seeing goes into so many different areas with work. And, I know women, especially women, I've talked to some women lately who are re-entering the workforce after having to come home during COVID, and they're not sure what it's going to be like after them. Or now people are having to re-enter into a physical workspace instead of the virtual, and they're not sure how to show up in that, in IRL world, that in real life. So I just feel like it's a conversation we need to have on a variety of levels. And I know that a lot of times women will have an idea and maybe not necessarily talk about it a lot.
Yep.
And then someone else will say it, and then we'll be like, dang it. Why didn't I say that? And then we beat ourselves up and why did I keep that to myself? And, and then it can spiral down and make us feel imposter syndrome and all sorts of things. I was actually just talking to somebody about imposter syndrome, and the person who was feeling the imposter syndrome, I was like, are you insane? Like, how are you feeling imposter syndrome? And, I just, it
Yeah.
mind. So, I guess,
So normal.
is there a time when you kind of that shift where I want to be seen, dadgummit, and this is what I'm going to do?
Yes. And it's interesting because you segued right into my next book, which is Voices of the 21st Century.
And that was not on purpose, so that was all organic.
Yeah. It's Women Empowered Through Passion and Purpose. Now, this was a collaborative book, also an international bestseller. And so I agreed to write a chapter. It's just 1,000 words, but there's 45 women from around the world who contributed to this book. And you can see it's a very, very short, easy read. The reason that I agreed to do this was because I thought it was time to tell a story about a time in my life when I didn't feel lovable or that I was worthy of love. So the chapter that I wrote is called You Are Worthy of Love. And there's so much symbolism, with the flaming heart and all of that, which I had nothing to do with this book cover art. I had nothing to do with it. But if I would have, it would have been this. If I would have had control over it, it would have been something exactly like this. Because
You're thinking that was your influence on that.
no, not at all. And so that's how I knew that this was the right one to say yes to. And so the conscious choice I made, Chrissy, to answer your question is that I thought to myself, you better show up completely raw, completely vulnerable, and completely as yourself in writing this chapter. So I did, because I wrote about a time in my life that I never talked to anybody about because I had so much stigma attached to it, so much shame. Mm-hmm. And yet I just thought, if people could see me today, like you said earlier, with a imposter syndrome, no one would ever think that I have these saboteurs trying to talk me out of things and telling me I'm a piece of shit or whatever. But we all have them. And so that is our ego trying to protect us. And so Yes, that's a great question because it hasn't been until probably these last, I don't know, 5 or 10 years that I've actually been creating the community I've been creating and getting some help that I didn't even know I needed until I said yes, hired the person um, to address these things. Like, yeah, I do have those like voices, saying, no, you need to do this, or you can't do that, or, you're an imposter, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter anymore because now I get to accept it, welcome it for what it is, and then disperse it. And so there are lots and lots of tools and ways to do that. And, if I'm going to be showing other people how to show up authentically, I knew that I had to set the example of doing it myself through my writing. And, I make jewelry, I write. Those are things that come naturally to me and I love doing. And I really, it's only been in the last, maybe 10, 15 years that I've accepted that I am a creative person and I do have fun things that I love to do that satisfy me at a soul level. And maybe they're going to help other people in the process. Maybe, my words are going to give other people permission to show up as themselves and to show up authentically as well. And that is my goal. Just like my mom lived her life to help other people, I'm doing it in this way where I want you to feel like you're not alone. I'm right here with you. I got you.
I like that. I like that. And you said authentically, and I feel like sometimes people think that's a buzzword and they don't understand what that really means. And that's one of my things that I've been stressing as well is people are kind of over the overproduced stuff and or the fake stuff. It's like when we watch these reality shows, like, okay, we know this is scripted, come on. And so people are craving that authenticity that they can relate to that I've admitted I'm kind of a dork, I'm a little bit of a nerd, I have weird quirks and I'm cool with it. Do I randomly hop on the shopping cart to push myself? Yes, I do. I'm okay with that. So I feel like people need to understand what authentic actually means
Yeah.
nowadays. So
I think part of authenticity is also having a sense of humor. And really, even in my marriage, I've been married for 28 years to the guy I'm married to now. The chapter I wrote in the book had to do with my first marriage. So I won't say anything more than that. But it's been really interesting to start to cultivate a sense of humor after so many years, being married to the same person and then hitting a wall or having a crisis of confidence, as can happen to me and can happen to him
yeah.
at times. And then being able to kind of snap out of it, either by realizing it ourselves or having the other person. Like even earlier today, I don't know what it was, but, you know, oh, I know what it was. Shh, don't tell Corey I told you this. But, he's like, he comes upstairs and he's like, oh, I can't stand it. I'm on Instagram and I'm like going down a deep, hole and I'm doom scrolling and I'm like, and who's making you be on Instagram? Like, you can get off anytime, buddy. And he's like, oh, like he knew it. And we just had like a little laugh about it. And so now it's like, instead of kind of scolding ourselves or being mean to ourselves or trash talking ourselves, we have the choice, and this is always a choice, to either laugh about it or do something about it or stay in that in that rut, in that dark hole. And I don't like staying in the dark hole for very long. It's not fun and it's lonely.
Yeah. And, I'm always more about putting energy toward the positive. I'm not saying not address a problem. Obviously, you have to address a problem. Or if you see something about yourself that you'd like to change, obviously there's work to be done, but that doesn't mean you have to sit there and constantly judge yourself and say bad things to yourself. I don't remember the statistic that I saw, but it was essentially like we have thousands of thoughts a day, and what is it, 90% of the ones we say to ourselves are negative. It's some insane statistic, but you know, that's not helping humanity as a whole. That's not helping us at all. So it's like each of us individually needs to get our own stuff together. And then, you know, the universal laws do state that when we've got our stuff together, it's going to amplify out there and just multiply more good things. So, and I don't want to go too far down the quantum physics
Yeah.
rabbit hole, but
And it's completely normal too, right? Because we were all raised in some form or fashion culturally to instill certain beliefs from whatever our parents and whatever their parents thought about what made a happy or successful or productive life. For me, it was that whole disease of, if you're not producing and producing results, then your life is meaningless or you're worthless. And so there's a distinction and a fine line actually between what we were talking about earlier in terms of having a sense of humor about something and toxic positivity. So, and I know you totally get this too, because I think we've talked about this, is just, you know, it's not to ignore that there are issues. It's to embrace those issues. It's to embrace, like my sister and I say, embrace our dark side and see where that leads us so that we can peel back layers. You know, and it doesn't have to be deep work either, but be aware of what's causing us to make the choices that we make. And are we making those choices out of love or out of fear? And so having the people around us that we trust, and also being able to self-regulate and have a good talking to with ourselves. All of these things are developing ourselves as leaders. And again, to the extent that we're able to do that is the level at which we will attract customers and people who want to be around us and people who want to support us and compensate us for our gifts in the world. So the work starts right here for, being finally seen.
you know, I love that you said attracting those who want to work to us or work with us too, because I feel like it's also a little bit of repelling those that we don't want in our circle. And, you know, it's like, and if somebody else isn't a match for you, that's fine. But if it's going to cause friction for you, why do you even want to attract them in the first place? So, yeah, I like that you say that.
Tired of overpriced energy drinks full of junk? Same. That's why I use Babello, a self-carbonating hydration packet that gives you clean energy, electrolytes, and vitamins without the crash. Just add water, shake, and sip. It's way more affordable than typical energy drinks and way better for you. Use code ChrissyBernal15 at checkout to get 15% off at drinkbabello.com. Hydration just got an upgrade.
Your second book that you're talking about there, you said it was with how many women?
45 around the world.
That's amazing. So that's a great way of seeing the different perspectives from around the world and the different cultures and whatnot. I love that. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's why I said yes, because it was something new. And my next book, I also want it to be voices of many different people and not my voice alone. And so I have a whole plan for that. And I wanted to do this second book in that way so I could actually see how that was done. Because
Smart.
as an accidental author, as you know, I never knew anything about how to get a book out into the world. I've helped plenty of clients in the past birth their book babies and bring their books to the market. But that whole process of, writing the words down and then getting it made into a book that people actually hold in their hands or electronically was completely new to me. And so I've been on a really, really big learning curve. And I'm also teaching that as part of my Show Up You curriculum. I'm teaching more how to be with your creativity and how to amplify it into the world. And what I'm not teaching is the doing of it.
Okay.
And the reason I'm not teaching the doing is it's so subjective. It's individual for everyone. And you can get experts to help you with the doing and, and help you get books to the market, right? You do that. We and our friends at Up Level do that. And it's very important that we make those distinctions between being and doing. So
Love that.
my contribution, what I teach, train, and consult on is way heavier on the being about it than how to actually do it. I joke with people all the time, like, I'm not your tech support. I'm not going to show you, because the tech changes every 5 minutes. So, if you're looking for tech support on whatever it is, I'm not your gal. I can point you to somebody on my team who does that, but I'm not that person. And I love the point that you were making earlier about attracting the people who are going to fall in love with you, compensate you for what you're worth, and keep coming back and refer their people to you. And I do this. I filter my audience by showing up authentically on social media channels. So, as you said before, not everybody's going to like you. You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And so I really love it when people do their research. If they're going to ask me to be involved in a project, for example, and help them grow their business, first, I want them to get to know me a little bit. And one way to get to know me, besides having this kind of a conversation, is also to look and see what I care about. See what I care about. And I post online what I care about on different channels, different things for different audiences.
Yeah.
And I've gotten less and less shy over the years about showing up exactly as I am and exactly as I'm not. So if you see something that you don't like, or that, like you said, repels you, that's great, because I have other people I can refer you to or whatever. But thank you very much. We're not for each other. We're not a fit, and nothing wrong with that.
I've had some thoughts about this type of thing lately, and I think sometimes we feel like we need to attract everybody. My business is for everybody, and we're too scared to repel the ones that aren't a good match. And I'm here to tell you that repelling those that aren't a good match saves so much time, money, and energy in the long run that you might as well just start repelling.
Yeah, I mean, let treat people like adults, right? Let people be responsible for themselves and their own health, their own sensibilities, their own central nervous system, just like we are. I'm responsible for all of my own. And let people self-filter. They will filter themselves out of your life and they will go somewhere else. And that's the way the world goes around. And that's the way businesses and economies thrive, is for, oh, you don't like one restaurant? Well, there's another one next door that you probably love. So it's that same kind of idea. And, that kind of, it's kind of oppressive thinking to think that we need to be best friends with everybody or that we need everybody to like us.
Mm-hmm.
Those were oppressive patriarchal ideas that were made up by old white guys, not thousands, hundreds of years ago, right? And so this is very ingrained in how we think, how we move through the world, the choices that we make about the silliest little things. Oh, I better not do that because then somebody might see it and then they won't like me. And it's like, what do you care? Like, I guess also that comes with age. Like, I'm at this age now, and if you don't like me, bless you, I love you, move along.
Yeah, I could say that does probably come with age a little bit too. Thankfully, like I feel like our girls have gotten a good grasp with that earlier on, that not everybody's going to like me, and that's okay. And I guess I'm not even sure how that happened, and I'm excited that it did, but I wish I would have learned that a little bit earlier, because then that's where the people pleasing comes in, and then you give away too much for free, or you're operating under a scarcity mindset because they're not going to like you, or they're going to be mad at you because you didn't do this for them for free or whatever.
Oh, so many mistakes that I personally have made over decades, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. That's why Show Up You exists. So many mistakes. Like, I want to try and save people from making those same business building mistakes. And I mean, I've been working since I was 9 years old, and I've been customer facing all of that time. So I've gotten very, very concerned with um, addressing people's needs, finding the needs, and then filling those needs. And the difference between Lynn today and Lynn 30, 40 years ago is that I'm not going to do that at my expense anymore.
Yes.
I'm not going to say yes when that little voice in my head is saying no, because I trust my instinct more now than I ever did before.
Yes. Yes, I had a situation come up recently where I turned a client away, and it would have been a great client, but something inside said, no, if you say yes to this client, you're operating under a scarcity mindset, and this client's going to be a giant pain in the butt. So you just need to say thank you, have a nice day, and move along. And I wouldn't have said that probably even a year ago. I probably would have taken them on and just gone, oh, I'll figure it out, or I can make it work, when it would have just been a disaster. So I appreciate you saying that. If there's someone out there who is finding themselves at that, what you mentioned earlier, where they are kind of stuck, feeling stuck, and they're not quite sure what that next step, what's one thing you would tell them right now?
Often I see that getting into a situation where you're feeling stuck or that your business is stalled in some way, it's because you're too close to your business to see what's one little tweak that you could make. So one little tweak that I would make if I were in that position and it's just kind of static, there's no growth, is I would bring somebody in with a fresh perspective, a fresh pair of eyes, a fresh voice, a fresh vision, and let them take a stab at what I'm currently doing, where I want to be in 2, 3, 5 years, and what's missing, what's the gap in between that I can fill. So we all need help. There's my favorite Ram Dass quote says, we're all just walking each other home.
I had a feeling that I love that quotation, so I knew you were going to say it.
Yeah. I mean, I printed it on my bookmarks and everything. So we are literally all just walking each other home. And so when we're stuck or when we're stagnant or when we can't even think our way out of a place where our business is paused, it's time to call in some reinforcements. It's time to speak with someone who maybe is objective, maybe not related to you, maybe not even a close friend, but somebody who's objective, and you've discovered that, you've met them maybe online, you like what you see, you like what you hear, and bringing that person in. And it doesn't have to be forever, right? It's not
Right.
like certain types of professions where you have to keep going back week after week after week, or you're going to not be healthy. No, it's one tweak, one jolt. And what I always say in my business is that I see things that you may be too close to see in your own business.
100%.
And I will uncover things for you. And even if it's just one or two little tweaks that you could do, that can make all the difference. And that's why Show Up You is now 1 hour increments because you don't need a 6-hour course or 4 weeks. You might only need to hear something and maybe you already know that one something. You already have it in your head. You already have it in your heart. Maybe you need to hear it from someone else in a different way. For that alone, it's worth investing your time and a little bit of money into getting a fresh perspective, getting some fresh eyeballs on your work.
Absolutely. I had a coaching session yesterday, and it was interesting because as they were asking me questions, I was answering, and an answer came out of me that I was like, whoa, that was in there? Interesting. I'm going to have to unpack that later. And, it's just, again, well, like you said, it's in your head and heart. So it was in there. I just needed somebody else to pull it out. And when it did, it was like, whoa, okay, that was pretty cool. So, yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. I love that. Well, Lynn, I know this hour has flown by already so fast. Where can people find you, find the Show Up You, connect with you?
Yeah. On my website is the best place, and that's lynnabaté-johnson.com. And I have a freebies tab at the top. So if anybody wants to go in and download a 2-page PDF on some of my basics of true community building, you're welcome to it.
Nice.
You can find my books there. You can find some biography about me there and how I can help you in your business. And you can also find the Show Up You, the next date, or add your name to the wait list for it. So welcome.
People definitely need to follow you online, because that's a real life demonstration of how you build community, because the way you reply to comments, the way you share other people's stuff genuinely and authentically, it's a perfect example of how to do community in a true community way. So yeah, I definitely hope people will connect with you. We'll put the information in the show notes for sure. And I'm so appreciative of you taking your time to show up here today and share and be open. And, hopefully at least one person gets the message they needed to hear today, and they'll finally feel seen. So thank you very much, Lynn. And I hope everyone will join us again on Finally Seen.